Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Thank you, 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 thanks, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the first ever recorded, set to be released episode of QFix Weekly Show. My name is Edwin Austin. By calling me QFix, you still get to have my undivided attention. I will be your host. South Africa is known to most of us as the relatively peaceful nation where Madiba came from, as well as the home country of the immigrant hosting The Daily Show. Well, earlier this week, that peace was shattered by a series of brutal protests that culminated in the blocking of roads, torching of buildings, looting of malls, and worse by far, death of civilians. Even to this very minute, we have information that gunshots and explosions are still ringing out in some parts of South Africa. Although I'm not sure the ringing I'm hearing right now is from South Africa. I think it's my phone. Just a second. Never mind, let's move on. It's one of those drunk calls from your exes. So the question you probably might be asking is, why has there been this kind of unrest in South Africa? Well, I can tell you for sure that it has been linked to Jacob Zuma's imprisonment. And by the way, Jacob Zuma is not one of those guys who was standing in the crowd when Rafiki held Simba over the edge of the cliff like an African Michael Jackson. Jacob Zuma is actually the former president of South Africa. He led the nation for 9 good years. Well, not actually so good, because essentially the 9 years were marred by scandals. It is estimated that over $35 billion disappeared from state coffers during his tenure. On the 29th of June, Jacob Zuma was granted a 15-month jail term. This is after he defied an inquiry into allegation charges. And yes, despite the violence having been sparked by his imprisonment, over the last few days, it has evolved to an outpouring of anger over the country's economic situation. This is 27 years after the end of apartheid. The current South African president, Mr. Ramaphosa, earlier this week deployed armed police and army to help bring order back into South Africa. But the video you're about to see next clearly shows that these guards were not there to sort of mitigate this situation, but rather to add gasoline onto an already blazing pile of matches. Away from South Africa and back home to Kenya, University of Nairobi is set to undergo a fiscal restructuring in an effort to have quick decision-making and greater financial discipline. The decision to get rid of the 5 DVCs, that is DVC Finance, DVC HR, DVC Student Affairs, DVC Academic Affairs, and DVC Research and Information, was pushed by the need to eliminate duplication of functions and redundancies and enhance accountability. A proposal to spike the tuition fees for the comrades was also brought to the fore. And as you'd probably predict, it was not well received. Just to give you a better understanding of what exactly these changes mean, law students will be expected to pay 284,000 more. Engineering students will be expected to pay 1.08 million more. And medicine students, which essentially were the larger group there in those protests, are expected during their 5-6 years in campus to pay 1.1 million Kenya shillings more. That is a spike from 2.8 million to 3.9 million Kenya shillings. Although in all honesty, I don't think all of those medicine students were angered because of the fee. Come on. One of those guys was probably back then in the lab dissecting his cadaver, took a moment to visit the washroom, only to come back to a body with a missing liver. And then he had to go around asking, who was my liver? You know? And then probably heard about the tuition fee protest outside and decided, you know what? I'll just go ahead and vent my spleen out there. These new fees will apply to new students joining the university this month, which is a decision that marks the first major fees review for postgraduate courses and parallel programs in nearly 2 decades, because essentially these changes will apply to postgraduate courses and parallel, essentially because a proposal by the VC to triple state-sponsored students' fee from whatever it was to 48,000 annually, that proposal was, as you would probably expect, met harshly. It never went through. So essentially this will be for postgraduates and the self-sponsored students. It is to them that these changes will actually apply. Undergraduates, whatever amount you are paying, you still pay. Mostly, sports news tend to be scheduled to appear at the very end of a news bulletin. Well, firstly, this is no ordinary news bulletin. I mean, come on, this is QFix Weekly Show. And secondly, the sports news that I do have are no ordinary sports. Well, ladies and gentlemen, earlier this week, the Copa America and Euro 2020 final games were played. And yes, we are calling it Euro 2020 despite us being in 2021, because essentially because of the pandemic, the 2020 Euro was postponed to 2021. The same way most of you have decided to postpone their bathing periods during this cold month of July. You know, it's no longer a 2 times a day affair. It's now more of a let's wait and see. In the Copa America, Argentina defeated Brazil by 1-0 to be crowned Copa America champions. The goal was scored by Di Maria, which by my own measure is the luckiest player in football. I mean, this guy has played with every great footballer you could ever think of. You know, Messi, Aguero, Ibrahimovic, Rooney, De Gea, Neymar, Cavani. I mean, for crying out loud, this guy has even played with Fellaini. With Argentina winning the Copa America, well, Messi now has an international cup under his belt, because essentially he had all other cups you would ever think of in football, but no international cup, you know? And well, second only to the video of Omondi Timon receiving a beating. Well, the video of Messi and Neymar embracing after the Copa America final was probably one of the most watched videos, you know, on the internet. The best player with the ball on his feet embracing the best theatrical player with the ball away from his feet. After failing to qualify for the 2018 FIFA World Cup, Italy national team was considered by many to be a team headed for the trenches. However, that thought was obliterated after the inclusion of Roberto Mancini as the new head coach of Italy. Since taking over the reins, Italy has gone unbeaten for 34 matches. the 34th match being the Euro 2020 final match against England, where Italy won the match on penalties. Although I find the last part rather redundant because essentially no one cares how they won the match. The fact remains Italy are now Euro 2020 champions, you know? The same way no one cares how you get to a party. Just get your ass there. Despite Italy being crowned Euro 2020 champions, then I believe it would be remiss of me if I failed to mention that the most defining moment of the night was not actually the trophy lifting ceremony or Bonucci pulling Saka away from the manhole that suddenly appeared on the pitch. By my own measure, I do believe that the most defining moment of this match was this pitch invader. Ladies and gentlemen, this was by far the most defining moment of that match. The pitch invader has speed, balance, technique, and stamina. All you could ask from a footballer. I must say I would not want to play cat and mouse with that guy. Although I'm not sure who the cat was and who the mouse was in this particular case. With the 2022 general elections just around the corner, there has been an intense search of the 4 new IEBC commissioners. Well, prospective candidates have been appearing in front of a panel at the KICC, and well, one of the commissioners who caught our attention was Florence, who is a former commissioner of KHRC. And by the way, KHRC does not mean Kenya Hosting Rally Championship. That is WRC. KHRC actually means Kenya Human Rights Commission. Well, what fascinated most of the Kenyans about Florence was that she is actually not a fluent Swahili speaker.
Question. What are the national languages of Kenya?
The national languages of Kenya is English and Kiswahili. Yes.
Great. Now, unafahamu Kiswahili?
Ninafahamu lakini kuongea ndio sio didi sana kwa sababu unajua sisi hatukufanya Kiswahili kwa nini, what is it called? The 844 people had compulsory Kiswahili, lakini sisi ni kujua tu Kiswahili kwa kuzungumza, kusikia, ndio.
It is actually true that most Kenyans use Kiswahili for communication. So despite that small element that stood out during Florence vetting, although we are not quite sure whether that is a plus or a minus, well, I guess in her defense, she did actually say that she has used Swahili in the past to give verdicts back when she was working in a court in Kibera, I believe. Well, either way, the vetting process continues, and hopefully we will be able to get some new IEBC commissioners so that they can start planning for the upcoming 2022 general elections, considering that we have already seen quite a number of by-elections that have taken place. This week alone, having witnessed the by-election of Kiambaa constituency. This is after their former leader died earlier this year in March. Well, hopefully, the 4 vacant positions in IEBC will be filled. Whether or not Florence will be among them, hiyo ni jambo ambalo sifahamu kwa sasa, lakini iwapo atakuwa mmoja wao, basi naamini kwamba mambo yatakuwa shwari. Well, translation for Florence, I wish you all the best. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all we had for you today. Our time is up, and unfortunately you can't send us more time, but you can send us your feedback. That is by leaving a comment just below this video, and also do make an effort to follow us on social media. You can start by subscribing. I believe there's something that pops up at the end of this video. I'm not quite sure, but please do that. comment, and you can follow me on the social media platforms. I believe they're somewhere here. I'm not quite sure where. But yeah, that is all we had for you today. It has been a joy, a delight to be precise, having you here today. All that is left to say from the QFix desk is muchas gracias.